This is Family Law with Lillian, where legal experience meets heartfelt guidance. Presented by the Legal Podcast Network.
Hello, I'm your host, Nancy Gregory. Our guest, Lilian Audu. She is a family law lawyer with Audu Law Firm based in Sugar Land, Texas. Welcome, Lillian.
Thank you, Nancy. It's good to be with you.
Now, your practice is based in Sugar Land, but I understand your reach is much further.
That is true. So Sugar Land is in Fort Bend County, and we have other counties that surround the Fort Bend area. We have Harris County, Brazoria County, Montgomery County. So these are all counties that we practice in.
You know, I recently read an alarming statistic. It states that 23.5% of divorce is caused by domestic violence. What is your message to women who you represent and to those listening who perhaps haven't had the courage to reach out?
The time to reach out is when you still can, because the most important thing to know about domestic violence, not that I need to tell anyone who's lived through the experience what to expect. However, you have to have a period of time when you're clear-headed, when you're away from that environment, if it's difficult to make a decision while in that environment. It might take spending time with family members just to step out of that and have time to yourself to really evaluate which direction you want your life to go. One thing that is clear to us is that we all have a right to live a good life, a quality life. And when that is being taken away, it might take some time to determine with the best course of action, especially when you have children to worry about. Nonetheless, even when a person is not ready to leave, even when a person doesn't think that in that present instance they can make it out of that situation, it is best to reach out and talk. Not necessarily to make an immediate decision, but enough to have the knowledge you need to advise your future actions so that you can get to that place where you're ready to make a change if you want to.
Lillian, what happens if the person is in a shelter, maybe with their children? What kind of resources can they have there, or do they have to be in a separate residence in order for them to proceed?
So when a person is in a shelter and they are served with a divorce document or child custody document, of course you can imagine the shock that comes with that and the anxiety that feels. The best thing to do is to, again, like we talked about, reach out to someone, find someone who will be willing to speak with them about the legal documents that they have, and get some ideas on what to do. In Texas, we have several legal aid organizations that are able to help people. So reach out to those as well. One of them is the Lone Star Legal Aid, which is here in the Houston Metroplex. And also just go to a law library and speak to someone. They will always, refer you to important resources that can be of help. We talked about reaching out to Meetup to see if there are people with ideas. Call lawyers. Yes, lawyers are very busy people. That's true. You might call 10 and 7 of them may be busy, but you might have the one person who decides today is my day to give back to my community, and that happens to be the person that you reach that day, and they'll be happy to speak with you and let you know what your options are. And those are the things that a person can do if they're already in a shelter. And it's also important to not overlook the resources that are there. Recall that if a person in the shelter is at a shelter, they also have other people who perhaps have gone through the same experience as they are going through, who are able to provide some insight based on their own experiences, who are able to refer them to certain people, certain groups that they know. But typically, they don't get to that point until they start reaching out, they start talking and making new connections, and that's very important. Those connections could end up being long-term friends, but all in all, There are resources all over the place. Just have to be willing to talk about it. You have to be willing to reach out. You have to be willing to make those calls, and have the bravery to ask for help, because it's around somewhere.
Now, if we're talking about, a mom that's left with her children, maybe they don't have access to funds at that particular moment, and they're afraid that their children might be taken away from their other partner when they leave. There are some very particular things in Texas law that protect them, correct?
That is correct. If they need to talk to someone during that time before they can leave, where it is very difficult, there are options available. There are groups that are willing, of people who are in the same situation, who are willing to discuss some of the issues in a way that will resonate with a person who has had that experience. I would say, if you have access to online, being you're able to get online, get into Meetup. Look at some of the topics that are there. There are people who are willing to talk. There are people who are willing to share their stories and hear your story, and start to form that support group gradually. Audu Law Firm has a Meetup group where what we do is simply talk. We invite people to sign up, join us once a month, bring your questions. This is absolutely free of charge. We do not just discussion, because the whole idea of this is built around being able to understand what is going on, so that you can have a better strategy for tackling it. Because understanding the problem is that problem half solved. And then when you get into the legal process, at a point that a person gets into the legal process, the law is available to protect them in many ways.
Now, the reality is there's a lot of people, like when it comes to leaving a relationship like that, like there are a lot of misconceptions.
Yes, Nancy. The biggest one is that when people hear about family violence, they say, well, why doesn't she just leave? Experience and just statistics alone tells you that it's not always easy to up and leave, because there are many things to consider. That person's own psychological state is a big issue in some cases, because they have to be able to get to a place where they have the courage to believe that they can leave. Without that, it's difficult to take that leap and head out. And if that person has 3, 4, 5 children, and maybe very, very little ability to make income independent of the person that is causing the abusive situation, then it's even that much harder, because now they're not just thinking about themselves, they're also thinking about the welfare of their children. And this is where family support, friendship support, online groups, shelters, etc. come to help.
Have you had some examples of clients who had difficulty perhaps leaving in the situation, but what do you want people to know about the other side, like when they get through it?
Well, as you know, I can't talk about specific cases, but what I do want any person to know is that every act of courage is handsomely rewarded. They are able to start to believe in themselves again, which every human being has a right to. And no one should have that taken away from them. So just being able to believe in themselves again, taking one step at a time and moving forward and making things happen. I have seen, many times we've seen stories of people who've made it to the House, U.S. House of Representatives, who were once in a very abusive situation. There have been people who've gone out and started businesses, and been very successful at it, whereas they did not at one point believe that they could, because of the domestic violence situation. And you have to remember, those little eyes, they are watching. Those children are imprinting every single thing that they see. So when a parent is considering whether or not to leave an abusive relationship, they have to consider it, of course, not just for themselves, but for what impression they are making on the younger ones, who would one day have to rely on what they see to make their own decisions about their own lives.
So they have to have the courage to get out of that situation and seek shelter, but they also have to perhaps find again that courage to reach out to talk to somebody about their legal options.
Absolutely. Those two things are essential.
What do you believe sets your approach apart from other family lawyers?
We believe in the whole person. We will fight in court for our clients. We will support our clients outside of court. So I cannot, of course, speak for every law firm. I'm sure there are people other law firms who embrace the same idea. In Audu law firm, it's a matter of culture. It is who we are.
Family law, where does your passion for it originate from? I can feel the passion in your voice.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, I guess I have always had a thing for underdogs, from school playgrounds to classroom debates to law school. So I've always felt the need to speak for that as a child. I always felt the need to speak for that child who couldn't speak for himself or herself. I've always felt the need to stand up. Someone has to say something. This cannot continue. It is not fair. There's always that need for justice and to stand up for someone else at any time. And I'm glad that, family law allows me to continue that.
Did you always want to be a lawyer? Is that where you set out to be right from the get-go?
Actually, the first time I thought about being a lawyer was only 8 years old. But as time went on, as every child does, I forgot about that and went on to other ventures. But eventually, came back to it, I can tell you that there's been no area of my life that's been as fulfilling career-wise outside of my family as, the opportunity and the privilege to be a lawyer.
Lillian, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for doing what you do and the difference that you make. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
832-780-9005 or online at adulawfirm.com.
Our guest today, Lilian Audu, family law lawyer with Audu Law Firm based in Sugar Land, Texas. Until next time, I'm Nancy Gregory.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos like this one. And be sure to follow us on social media.